We Are Here, a podcast produced by St. Bonaventure, Franciscan Conventuals, and now to We Are Here. We are here, and I'm here with Brother Charles, who has been here how many years now at Marytown?
Since 1968, basically.
1968, but that was at the second Marytown? Kenosha.
And here.
Okay.
Yeah, total, since 1968, except 2 years at the House of Studies and 1 year in the Vision. Other than that, I've been here.
Okay. Well, we're kind of putting these podcasts together to get to know the Friars, or allow the people to get to know the Friars, especially at this time when we're kind of stuck home. It's not like you really travel out a lot. We got to be honest there. But maybe you have an idea of, or can tell us your experience of something that happened in the past that might be similar to this, or if this is something totally new, or just, I guess, what's your sense, what's your feeling, and all that's going on. And
well, I look upon it a little bit different. I understand we're serious about this pandemic of this virus, and it's a serious thing, and it needs to be controlled and beaten back and things of that sort. But I don't hear anybody talking about the real pandemic that's been going on for 47 years.
Mm-hmm.
The pandemic of abortion.
Okay.
12,000 children each week die in their mother's wombs, and there's no concern, or very little concern. That's why when I lead the rosary in the evening, I always put that in there. Pray for the end of the pandemic of abortion and the virus. Because the pandemic of abortion is far more serious than this virus.
And they both take lives, and it's been around the world a lot longer than this pandemic, too.
Oh, much more so. I mean, probably around the world, there's probably 1 million children each week that die in their mother's wombs, when you think there's 50 or 60 million abortions throughout the world.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the Lord is kind of giving us a little nudge. You know, the things have to change.
Mm-hmm.
We have to change. The church has to be more aware of this pandemic of abortion. I've heard very few tie-ins with it between what we're undergoing now and the pandemic of abortion. It is a pandemic.
It's kind of like the tree in the forest. We're so focused on the virus, you know, and trying to make people safe in that way, that maybe it's got a little bit overshadowed the abortion side of things. And putting that two and two together is just not maybe that aware. We're not that aware of it.
It's not politically correct. We still refer to it, as some foolish officials have referred to it, as a vital or essential health service.
Mm-hmm.
The killing of children in their mother's womb is an essential health service. Go figure.
Yeah.
It's anything but. And I think we need, as friars and as a church, we need to be far more outspoken on it, and to make far greater efforts to bring this pandemic of abortion to an end.
Mm-hmm. Well, definitely, I mean, our prayers, and Father John Calgaro, and those that go with him to the abortion clinic, and those other hundreds and thousands of people that go to the abortion clinics or pray on the rosary daily, weekly, monthly for the end of abortion is one way we've been doing it.
That's one of the bright spots. Only God Himself knows how many lives they have saved by these actions.
Mm-hmm.
And we need to pray to strengthen their efforts. And all the other different means that are being used to try to combat this plague of abortion. But you stop to think. People are horrified even today, and they should be. 6 million Jews were wiped out in a few years' time.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
But we in our country have dwarfed that Holocaust. We have about 60 million abortions. And 6 million Jews was half the Jewish population of the world, I believe, at that time. Thank God it was finally put an end to. But we somehow or other we have to bring this abortion plague to an end.
And how do you think people need to understand what it means that there's life within the womb? We have the young people that find themselves in a situation where they're intrigued by the other person, shall we say.
Yeah.
All right, they're dating. They don't know how to kind of pour a little cold water on the flush of passion here, and then all of a sudden they find out they're pregnant in that. But they want to get out of. They want to hide the sin by another sin, and how do we get
Cover
rid
up
of
one
them?
sin with another.
Yeah,
It's like covering up a lie with another lie.
exactly.
And it's not just those outside of marriage, but within marriage.
Yes.
There's an enormous number of. It's not convenient to have a third or a fourth child. It upsets their economic plans for the future. People are far more important than any economic concerns, that you might have. There has, and I think many a marriage I think has been destroyed by abortion, one way, shape, or form.
Mm-hmm.
The couple have a falling out, and that is there. That has to be there in some way, affecting the mother herself. Because people can say what they want, but most women, I think, who have an abortion are very deeply affected.
Yes, I have to agree that they are. From my understanding of that, and it's funny how the man is always concerned about the money, taking care of people, and that, but he doesn't realize the pressure he might put on his wife.
Not only that, but in many cases, the man has no say in the matter. He has no say. The courts have ruled time and again that it's the woman's decision to make, not the man's.
True, but I'm just saying within the context of marriage.
Context of marriage, yeah. That is the be all and end all of everything, is the money consideration.
Mm-hmm. But it puts a lot of, like you say, it does something to the wife, because then she takes on the burden. She's the one that feels guilty.
Yeah, she is the one who had life within her and suppressed it.
Right, and it's like the husband had no part in conceiving and conception. In the beginning there, it's like, wait a minute, there's self-control on both ends here. Even within marriage, and I try to tell that before couples get married. You're going to have to learn how to use self-control outside of marriage, inside the marriage too. There are going to be times you're going to need to do that.
I think I've noticed this quite a bit. I've run into so many women, for instance, who've had miscarriages. But for the men, it doesn't have the same impact on them. The wife has a miscarriage, and then the husband more readily forgets it. The mother can never really forget that. She has lost a child growing within her. There is a certain insensitivity, I think, today to people who have miscarriages. That's why I like our statue outside there, which covers both abortion and miscarriage. That memorial that we have outside. I think that there needs to be a greater realization of the harm and the tragedy of miscarriage is for women. I think men need to be more aware of it.
Yeah, there's that connection that they just don't have as the wife and the woman
mother has the direct connection.
Right.
And of course, with abortion, you see so many instances where women later on, they regret what they have done. You know, and it might be 30, 40, or 50 years later, but they still have that ruefulness, that regret, that loss of something special.
So with this and what we're talking about, what would you say to a young person, male or female, or maybe they're dating? What would you say to say, okay, hey, I want you to be aware of this. I want you to try to understand the other side here. You know,
Yeah.
the gentleman to the woman, or the husband to the wife, or just as a single, you know, if he's going to be dating a girl, you know, what would you say to maybe get that through to them?
I find it hard because I, for one, am so repulsed by the idea of killing the unborn. I'm from a large family.
Yeah, how many again?
11 of us, and my mom had a miscarriage, which would have made 12 of us, you know. And I became very aware of that in my early 20s one time when somebody in the family made a remark about, you know, oh, well, that was just, you know, that one didn't count or something like that. My mom hit the ceiling. Oof. It was said in an offhand way, because it was before he was even born. It was one of my brothers that made the remark before he was even born that this had happened. And he didn't realize the impact that it had on my mother. And I never forgot that.
Yeah.
And
Can't imagine.
yeah. You know, there's such, I don't know what I would tell somebody. I would beg with them not to go down that route of killing their child, because they're responsible to God for that child. For whatever reason, God allows that child to be conceived. And he has a reason, he has a purpose for that child. Every person has a purpose in this life. And I think maybe that's part of our problem in our world today, is that people don't understand how much God values each one of us. It doesn't make any difference whether we're rich or poor or intelligent or even stupid. God has created us. He loves us, and he has a future for us.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and I mean, we've heard stories, I'm sure you heard stories, and the movies that have been put out by those that, you know, lost or were on the other side of things, you know, have abortion. Then they come to this realization.
Abby Johnson comes to mind, yeah.
And it's like, what have I been doing all these years? And this realization of those that have been actually aborted but then saved, and the life that they offer now to each person that's alive now. I mean, God does have a plan for each and every one of us. We can't control God's plan. All right, we're going to be born. There's a plan for you. I've got you covered.
Yeah, with somewhere in the scriptures it says that, you know, I knew you before you were born.
Jeremiah.
Jeremiah, yeah. I often think of a priest acquaintance I met at an abortion clinic about 40 years ago. He was studying to be a priest at that time, but he had led a very wild and evil life in his earlier days. He was probably mid to late 30s. And we were at the abortion clinic, and I found out he was studying, after we broke up our prayer vigil, that he was studying for the priesthood. And he told a couple of us about his background.
Oh boy.
He had been he ran a nightclub. I think it was New York, I'm not sure. It could have been could have been over in Jersey. I don't remember which city it was anymore. But he said he never saw the daylight because all of his activities were at night. And he'd helped a number of women procure abortions and things of that sort. And he continued in this life of making a lot of money through his nightclub, and they did all kinds of other things there, you know. And he was doing quite well financially. And he had a partner who, in one way or another, crossed the mob that controlled his district. He had to pay a kickback to, and he crossed them. He crossed the mob, I guess, owners, I guess you'd call them.
I'm going to hold you right there. We're going to take a little break right now and give a little anticipation for them to return right after this. Okay?
Hello, I am Brother Donald Thielson with the Franciscan Conventuals of St. Bonaventure Province. I would like to talk to you about Mass intentions that you can still have offered. Your intention for a deceased loved one, for a person who is living, for yourself, or any special need will be offered by the priest who celebrates the scheduled intention for that Mass. Stipends are $10 per Mass or $25 suggested donation for perpetual Masses celebrated daily. Mass intentions are not considered a tax-exempt donation, but a stipend for the friary community. In the Gospel of John, chapter 8, verse 12, he says, "I am the light of the world. The one who follows me will not walk in darkness, but will have the light of life." As long as we have Christ's light in our hearts, we will never walk in darkness. For us Christians, a lighted candle symbolizes Christ, the light of the world. And so it is that every moment we light a candle, we are connecting our minds and hearts to Him who is ever near and ready to heed our call. Lighting a candle is an offering or holy intention of your good will for a person to Jesus along with your prayers. You can consider it almsgiving to help support the friars at the same time. A donation for a small 3-day candle is $3, and a donation for a large 7-day candle is $6. These are times when it is difficult, though you are offering your prayer intentions for loved ones who we believe are also praying for you. We invite you to enroll your loved ones, friends, and family, living or deceased, in the St. Anthony Holy Mass League. These intentions are remembered at each daily Mass. The St. Anthony Novena also recalls these loved ones every Tuesday evening at 7 p.m. and especially on the Feast of St. Anthony, June 13th. A card and personalized St. Anthony Novena folder as a gift will be given for the person who is enrolled in our daily Masses. Also included is a prayer leaflet of the Novena of St. Anthony. You can choose any or all of these by going to the website colbyshrine.org and click on the tab Liturgical Life and find Masses, prayers, and intentions to complete your offering.
Well, welcome back to We Are Here. Now, things did change here. We swapped seats just to make fun of, make a little fun.
My chair squeaked too much. That's what it was.
So we're back with Brother Charles and his story. It's getting a little intense here.
At any rate, I'll call this man John. I don't want to use his real name. I know, I'll just call him John. And he was called by the police one day. And they said, "We want you to come down to such and such a warehouse. We think this is your partner down here." He went down and he brought him in, and he was stunned. There was his partner, whom he'd known a long time, was a good friend with, on a meat hook.
Oh.
And his face was filled with hate and rage as he was being killed, and that was etched onto his face. And that just struck him cold. He couldn't believe that first of all, that this had been done to his partner, and second, that he died with so much hate and rage coming out of him. It shook him to his very soul. It shook him into his very soul, and he just realized, I have to get out of this business. And he had an instantaneous conversion. And he tried several times to get rid of the business, and he couldn't do it. And he needed one night, he had a very definite, he knew there was no doubt the Lord was calling him to the priesthood. Something he did not expect, because he had lived such a horrible and rotten and sinful life.
Wow.
and he felt called to the priesthood. And he said, Lord, how am I going to do this? They're not going to, if I just drop this business, I'm going to get killed too, like my partner.
He was connected with the mob also?
Yeah, because the mob owned his club.
Oh.
So it was a partnership that they had with the approval and sponsorship of the mob. And you don't mess with the mob. And so he said he went. He told the key guy that he had to contact that I had to discuss something with him and it couldn't wait. And he said, I want out of this business. I have to get out. He said, I want to become a priest. The guy was dumbfounded. He couldn't believe it. You want to become a priest? And he told him what had happened and how he had, when he seeing his partner like that, and he knew, first of all, that he'd been living a horrible life, a wrong life, and then he had received very clearly this call from God to study for the priesthood. So the guy said, I will get back to you.
You remember about what age this guy was at the time?
At the time, when I knew him, he was probably about 38 to 40, so he's probably maybe about 33, 34. Oh. And he'd been in the business for a good 10 years.
Okay.
You know, and so the next day, they had another meeting. We will let you out of this business if you enter the seminary.
Okay.
We know that you're entering the seminary. For any other reason, we would kill you. And so very quickly, they took the business out of his hand, and he said, I don't want any money or anything. I don't want any money or anything like that. I just want out. So they agreed to it. And he said there was a certain sense of respect for him. The fact that he had such change, and he was willing to become a Catholic priest of all things. And so he was, at that time, he was studying for the diocese back east, one of the dioceses back east. And like I said, I'm not sure where he was, whether he's from New York or from the Jersey side. You know, I'm not exactly sure, and I'm not sure what diocese he was studying the priesthood for. And that was about 40 years ago. I found out about 3 or 4 years later he had been ordained. I hadn't heard from him since. And the only place we ever met was that one time. It was on Holy Saturday that we met, and he told me the story in Chicago after we got done our vigil at the clinic, at the abortion clinic. I haven't seen or laid eyes on him since. Just the fact that he did achieve his goal and his vocation. Now he would be, you're talking 42 years later. He could be dead by now. I mean, he'd be 80 years. Well, he'd be about my age. I'm 80, and I'm not dead yet, but so he could still be alive.
Does he box the bag like you do still at 80?
That I don't know. But I've had no contact with him since then. But it just struck me that one of the things that he had done the most, he'd helped so many people, so many women get abortions. Now, if someone like this, in such a horrible lifestyle, can be converted, any person can be converted.
Ain't that the truth?
Any one of us. We all need conversion. There's no such thing as going through life and not needing conversion anymore. We all fall into sin, have to get up and keep going. But we have to pray very intensely for those who are involved with this abortion pandemic. Doctors, nurses, and especially the women who are involved, who have their children killed, and their husbands or their mates, whatever, that we have to make a greater effort to pray for the conversion, and in other ways, that any way that we can help to end this pandemic of abortion. I really think the Lord is sending us a warning with this virus pandemic, that our whole world is vulnerable. All of our wealth can be stripped away very easily. All this can all go. Mm-hmm. Wealthy country. Wealthy nations throughout the world are being affected by this. It can all disappear very quickly.
It reminds me of a dream I call the Revelation dream, but I'll talk about Revelations itself, how it talks about how the sky rolled back, and then heaven is revealed in a sense. I'm kind of paraphrasing from Revelations here, but you're right. This is all going to be taken away, and then everything's going to be laid bare, and we're just not going to be able to hide from it or deny it or try to make an excuse for our sins.
Yeah.
It just won't be possible, because we'll be in such a presence of holiness and truth that we just can't say no, we didn't do it, or make an excuse. Well, I was under this pressure. It just won't happen because of the immense royalty of Christ, shall we say?
Yeah. Well, just like with this guy, it happened in the other way. He was faced with his intense presence of evil, that he could no longer ignore it.
Yeah, you did say he's always in the dark. Worked in the dark and everything.
Worked in the dark.
His soul was in the dark.
He did not see. In fact, he told us. He said, "I don't think I saw the daylight for almost 3 years, because I had closed up my place 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. By the time I got out of the after closing everything up, it'd be 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, and I would sleep until the middle of the afternoon. Get up, go right back I would go outside and get in my car and go to work and things like that. But I really didn't see or live in the daylight. Mm-hmm. I lived in the darkness all the time, and in his case, he was forced to face the realities through darkness. And just, I've thought of that incident many a time, and I'll be looking someday to meet him in heaven to find out the rest of the story for him.
Oh yes. Well, I think this is definitely a revelation to maybe some people that are listening. Pray the rosary. You've kind of been taking it over ever since Brother Martin just got a little too frail.
I took over the evening rosary after he.
Not saying that you were not praying the rosary before, but you're more or less in charge of getting it going.
Yeah, and in the 7 o'clock rosary anyhow. And take the opportunity to ask anybody that sees this to join us at 7 o'clock most days of the week for the rosary, or like on Friday stations, and Sundays for benediction and evening prayer.
Yeah, just look online, and you can find us at colbyshrine.org. And hopefully when this is all over and we're kind of better for it, we can get out and back to our churches, back to the shrine of the National Shrine of St. Maximilian Kolbe, and see Brother Charles, and you can ask him questions right to his face. Mm-hmm.
Well, this is, in a way, I don't want to keep going, but the very fact that all of a sudden we've had the Mass and Sacraments taken away from 99% of the Catholics in the country, and over in Europe and other places in the world, all of a sudden, something very good has been taken away from us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that is as frightening as what's going on with this virus.
Kind of like using an old term, it's an awakening.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a hope for our country. I've read any number of times when our country was very, very Protestant back in the 1700s. They had what they called in this country the Great Awakening. Mm-hmm. And you read of that, and you read of people who wrote about it at the time. They were astounded at how much people made a conversion to God and began to pray and atone for their sins. And it was happened about 25 to 30 years before the American Revolution. Mm. Maybe that was God's way of preparing our nation to be for what was to come.
Well, I appreciate your candor, your stories, and being with us today. And hopefully we'll call you back again and do another podcast or something.
If you're desperate enough.
You're a storyteller in its own right, with all the books you've written also. And maybe we'll talk about your family a little bit and the stories and the craziness that goes on there, or had gone on there. So, yeah. Well, again, we thank you for visiting us. Come and look for our podcasts. And we are here, and we will always be here for you. So may God bless you and keep you, and let His face shine upon you.
Amen.
Amen. We Are Here is a podcast produced by St. Bonaventure Province of the Franciscan Conventuals of the United States. A theme song for this podcast is Soulful Bluesy Jam, taken from the royalty-free album Instrumentals for TV Productions, Podcasts, Movies, and Jingles, purchased through Amazon.com. You can find our podcast at FranciscanCommunity.com and ColbyShrine.org. And if you are a practicing Catholic male between the ages of 18 and 40, interested in learning more about our Franciscan conventual life, contact me, Father Hans Flandor, at friarvocations@gmail.com.